We begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of Nun Tesam with Beis, where it says Tanu Rabbanon. The first word on the line is Arba. Tanu Rabbanon, we learned in a Braise. Again, this is a sugya that discusses the halachas of a Kohen Gadol or a Kohen. With who is he allowed to have a relationship? Who is he allowed to get married to? So here regarding a Kohen Gadol, it says Anusas Atzmai Umafutas Atzmai. So this is a woman that he himself went and forced her into be into a relationship against her will. Or Mafutas Atzmai, he seduced her. So then after this, Lo Yisa, he's not allowed to marry her. But V'im Nasa, if he did marry her, Nasai, so then he's married to her. Hanusas Chaveirai, Mafutas Chaveirai, someone else went and was Ma'anas her, or was Mafata her, so also Lo Yisa, he should not marry her. But V'im Nasa, if he did marry her, so here there's a machlokes about this. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer Havlat Cholol. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says the child will be a Cholol. And Chachamim Omerim that Havlat kosher. That after such a marriage, a child that's born will be kosher. Okay. Now the Gemara will explain all the details of this Braisa. So what did it say in the beginning of the Braisa? V'im Nasa Nasoi, that a person went and was boil this woman before marriage, whether through an Einis, whether he was Mefata her, he was boil her, and then he goes and marries her, so the Braisa says Nasoi, it's married. But on this, Omer Avuna Marav, Avuna, the Kohen, this Kohen himself went, the Kohen Gadol we're speaking about here, and the Kohen Gadol himself went and did this, so then it says, if he goes and marries her, he's married. But Avuna Marav says in this, he's not allowed to remain married to her, Umaitzi beget. He has to be Maitzi her with a get, he has to send her away with a get. So the Gemara asks, so what did the Braisa mean? So this that the Braisa says that if he's married to her, now that he's married to her, he's already married. Why? I mean, you're saying he has to send her away with a get, so he can't remain married to her. What does the Braisa mean? Rav Acha bar Yaakov says that Braisa did not mean that he can remain married to her. All it meant was loymar, to say she'ein mishalem knas b'mafuta, that he will not have to pay the penalty that you usually pay by a mafuta. What's the halacha of a mafuta? A person that goes that seduces a girl into a relationship, so the pasuk says he has to pay her a knas of chamishim kesef, I believe it is. If he goes ahead and marries her, the pasuk says v'lo yisiya leisha, then he does not have to pay that knas. So what the pasuk over here is saying is regarding this Kohen Gadol that was mefata, this isha, that if he's going to marry her, so then he doesn't have to pay the knas. But that doesn't mean that he's allowed to remain married to her. He is going to have to divorce her. But the Gemara presses on over here that it's not so pasha. The Gemara says, Azal Rav Givia mi Beit Kosel, Rav Givia from the city Kosel went and Amr l'shmaita kamei Rav Ashi. He said over this halacha that Rav Huna over here said that he has to divorce her. So Amar lei, and he said to him, but why would he have to divorce her? Rav and Rav Yechanan both said that a begeres, when it comes to a begeres, which a kohen is not allowed to marry. Why isn't the kohen allowed to marry a begeres? Because she's not a basula. We are actually a machlekes about this in the Mishnah, but we pass like Rab Meir that says that a begeres you're not allowed to marry. Or a mukeseitz. A mukeseitz is also she's not a basula through an accident. Lo yisa, kohen should marry her, but v'im nasa nasai. But if he does marry her, he could remain married to her. So over here, you can't say v'em nasa nasa, like the pshat that we said before, that it's regarding the knas. There's no situation of knas that we're talking about over here. So over here, when it says v'em nasa nasa, that means that he could remain married to her. Now, what's the pshat? Why taka could he remain married to her? L'chayre, a kohen is not allowed to marry a woman that's a beula. He's only allowed to marry a basula. He married a begeres and a mukeseitz that's not a basula. So why could he remain married to them? So the hesbet is as follows. Alma, from this I see that what are Rav and Rav Yechanan saying? That Seifa Liyais begeres tachtov. Because this begeres, so true, he didn't marry her as a basula, but because every kohen that does marry a basula is supposed to marry a basula, but eventually she will mature and become a begeres. And once she becomes a begeres, he doesn't have to divorce her. He could remain married to her. So therefore I say, even though he was over Issa by the fact that he initially married her when she was a begeres, but once he's married to her, he was over an Issa, over in a mitzvah saseh, but he could go ahead and remain married to her. And the same thing, Soifali is mukeseitz tachtov. This is similar, I say, regarding a mukeseitz. Then the mukeseitz takes away her basulim, that even though he was over on this Issa and he did not marry her as a basula, but now that he's married, I say that he could remain married to her. Just like by every single Kohen Gadol, when he marries a basula, but afterwards she loses her basulim, and she could remain married to him. If so, says the Gemara, so why don't we say the same exact thing over here? regarding this Kayin that was Bayal, this woman, and now he marries her and he wants to remain married to her. Hachanami, over here I should say the exact same svara. Saifa Liya is Bu'ula Tachtov. Since he's the one that went and was Bayal her before marriage, and now he married her, so even though when he married her, she was not a Basula anymore, when it was over a Mitzvah Saseh, but since in the Saf, by every Kayin, she would become a Bu'ula, and we allow him to remain married to her, so over here we should say the same thing. But this only, as the Mefarshim add over here to this only applies to this woman that the Kohen Gadol himself was Bayal. If someone else was Bayal her, so then I wouldn't apply this svara that Tachtov, she would have became a Ba'ula from someone else. She wouldn't have become a Ba'ula from someone else. But if he himself is the one that was Bayal her before marriage, so even though now he's not allowed to marry her because she's not a Basula anymore, but once he did marry her, the halacha should be that he should be allowed to remain married to her, and the fact that he was Bayal her before, I say, in the end of the day, he would have been Bayal her anyways, and then he's allowed to remain married to her. So Kashya, this remains a question.
Can't we say that because it's believed Be'ilas Atzmai, that Be'ilah is Kedushin?
No, it wasn't done l'shem Kedushin though. If it was done l'shem, it was done l'shem Znus. So it's not. It was done l'shem Znus, and it's not Kedushin b'chlal. Okay, the next thing it said in the Braisa was Anusas Chaveiroi, Mafutas Chaveiroi, that if someone else was ma'anis this woman or seduced her, then Lo Yisa, so he's also not allowed to marry her because she's not a Basula anymore. But Vim Nasa, if he did marry her, so Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Mavlat Chalal, the child born is going to be a Chalal. Chacham Mavlat Kosher, the child is kosher. So the Gemara explains the Machlekes. So first, the Gemara will bring who the halacha is like. Omer Avon Amar Rav, halacha ka Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We pass like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that the child is a Chalal. We pass like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So now what's the reason? So Ikeda Amri, there were those that said, Amar Avuna Marav, my time with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, why does Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say that this child will be a Chalal? So the point over here is, the Kayin married her after someone else was Bayal her. So is that enough to make this woman puzzle enough that the child born should be a Chalal? So the Gemara says, depends. Savala Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov held like Rabbi Elazar that was quoted before in the Gemara. What does Rabbi Elazar hold? Rabbi Elazar holds a single girl that had a relation with a single man out of marriage makes that woman into a Zaina. Okay? We don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar, as the Gemara will soon say, and we paskin that a woman becomes a Zaina if she has a relation that's a Shesish or a Erve. But Rabbi Elazar says, anytime even a single man or a woman that have a relation, she becomes a Zaina. So if she becomes a Zaina, so then a Kohen Gadol that has a relation with a Zaina, the child is a Chalal. Fragt the Gemara, how could you say that this is the explanation of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion? Could you say that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds like Rabbi Elazar? But Vakaimalon, we know the rule always is Mishnahs Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Kav and Naki. The halachas of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov are Kav, which is a certain small measurement. There's not many halachas of him in Mishnayos, but Venaki. All of his halachas are clean, pure, we always paskin like him. But Vilu Baha, over here, regarding Rabbi Elazar's opinion, Amar Rav Amram, Amar Rav, Ein halacha ki Rabbi Elazar. We don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar here. So we can't say that the basis of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion is what Rabbi Elazar said. So the Gemara says, Kashya, this remains a question, Taka, this pshat. Now the Gemara brings another pshat of why Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said that the child would be a chalal. Not because the woman became a zaina. The Gemara explains, Rav Ashi Yamar, Rav Ashi says, B'yesh chalal mechayve yasei kamiflagi. What the argument about over here is, when a Kohen Gadol has a relation with a woman that's a ba'ula and not a basula, so he was over in a mitzvah saseh. There is no lav for a Kohen to have a relation with a basula, with a ba'ula that is. But there's a mitzvah saseh that he should marry a basula. So if he was over on the mitzvah saseh and did not marry a basula, over here that's the machlekes whether the child would be a chal or not. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar yesh chalal mechayv yaseh, that the child born will be a chalal even though it's only from an aseh. But Rabbanan Savri ein chalal mechayv yaseh. There's no the child born from this what it was done here that he married a bu'ula, so the child is not a chalal. So the Gemara brings now the source from the Psukim for this machlekes. My time the Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So what's the source for Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? That even if you were over on the Esed, the child will be a chalal, d'chsiv, because in the pasuk it says, Almana, Gerusha, Chalala, Zaina, Es'ela, lo yikach. So this is the lois Esed. All these different pasala women for a Kayin or a Kayin Gadol. And then it says, Kiyim Besula v'gaimer, he should only marry a Besula, so that's the mitzvah saseh, that he should marry a Besula. And then Iksiv, then the pasuk says, V'lo yechal zari ba'amav, that he should not make his children into chalalim. So what do you see over here? This is mamish the next pasuk, after it says Besula. So according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Akulu, when it says V'lo yechal zari ba'amav, it goes on everything mentioned before, including this that it says that he has to marry a Besula. So that's why if he married a Ba'ula, he was even in that essay, the child will be a Chalal. But the Rabbanan say, no, there's a word that makes a break here. It says, Eila Hifsik. After it says, Amana Grusha Chalal Zayna, the pasuk says as Eila Lo Yikach. And then it says Besula. So because it says Eila in between, it stops the inyan, and therefore I say that only for Eila do you make the children a Chalal, but not for the mitzvah say of marrying a Besula. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Eila is not coming to be mafsik. There's a different drasha from the word Eila. Eila, when it says only these, l'mu'ute nida, it's coming to exclude a nida. If a kohen has a relation with a nida, even though it's forbidden for him to have a relation with a nida, I would have thought that maybe the child becomes a chalal as well. So the pasuk here is saying, no, only these psulim that are unique psulim for a kohen or a kohen gadol, the child is a chalal, but not a relation with a nida. Gemara now brings a braisa where it says, like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Kaman Ozlaha the Tanya. According to who is this braisa where it says that me'ela ata oisa chalal? The braisa says, what do I learn from the word eila? That only from these mentioned in this pasuk here, the child born would be a chalal. Vi'at oisa chalal min nida. If a kohen has a relation with a nida, the child does not become a chalal. Kaman, whose opinion is this drasha? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Like we just said, this is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's drasha. Now the Gemara asks, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that the word Eila is just a drasha to teach me that with a nida the child is not a chalal. So nichtavi le'ela le'b'soif. Why doesn't it say Eila at the end? Why does it say Eila la'yikach in the middle? It should have first said Kiyim b'sulam ma'amav yikach isha, and then afterwards it should say the miyat of Eila. According to the Rabbanon, Eila has to be written in the middle to be mafsik, to separate between the psulim before and the psul of besula. But according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, it's not being mafsik. It's just telling you a new drasha to exclude a nida. So why isn't it written at the end? Kashya. So that remains a question according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov.
According to the Chacham over here, how did he become a chalal?
Through all of these psulim, but besides a mitzvah saseh. If a kohen does not marry a besula, or kohen gadol that is, does not marry a besula, the child does not become a chalal because that's only a mitzvah saseh. The Gemara continues with the halachas of kohenim. But here, this goes not into the halachas of who a kohen is allowed to marry, but the halacha b'negeh to a kohen that he's not allowed to get tamei to anybody. But then the pasuk says that to a close relative he's allowed to become tamei. And one of the examples the pasuk says is that a kohen may become tamei to his sister. But the pasuk gives very specific limitations to when he could become tamei to his sister. So one of the basic halachas that everybody agrees to is that this is only his sister before she got married, and she passes away, then he can become tamei to her. But if his sister got married already, and then she died, he's not allowed to become tamei to her. Because the pasuk says, La chaysa psula ashaloi haysalish, before she gets married. So here there's going to be a braisa with a few arguments regarding when a kohen can become tamei to his sister. So Tana Rabbanan achaysa yarusa. If this is his sister that got married, but only Eris, first stage of marriage, not fully married. So is that enough that she's cut off from him to some extent, and therefore he can't get tamei to her, or not? Rabbi Yehuda say he still could become tamei to her. She's not fully married yet. Once she's even married with Edisin, he can't become tamei to her. Another case, anusa umefuta. If his sister had a relation with someone else through an einis or someone seduced her, divrei hakayil ein metamala. After that, he can't become tamei to her. Another case, umukis eitz ein metamala. If she lost her status of being a besula through a mukis eitz, through an accident, so he can't become tamei to her, divrei Rab Shimon. So this is only the opinion of Rab Shimon. And the Gemara, the Bryce explains what Rab Shimon's opinion is. Shahaya Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon said the following rule regarding a kohen becoming tamei to his sister. Ru'uya l'kohen gadol, if his sister is still fit to get married to a kohen gadol, meaning she's still a besula, metamala, then if she dies, he can become tamei to her. She'ein ru'uya l'kohen gadol, if she's not right to a kohen gadol because she's not a besula anymore, so that would mean even if she's not a besula by accident with a mukis eitz, ein metamala, you can't become tamei to her. Then the Braisa concludes, Ubegeres, however, when it comes to a Begeres, if it's his sister that's already a Begeres, then everybody will agree, Mitamala. Mitamala Divrei Kolodam. It's a very interesting lashon, Divrei Kolodam. Others are guided over here, Divrei Akayl. Everybody would agree that it could become Tamiter. In other words, the chiddush of the end of the Braisa is, even though Rab Shimon just said that if she's not Roy to Kohen Gadol, he can't become Tamit to her, and according to, we learned before that a Begeres can't marry a Kohen Gadol, but nevertheless, everybody will agree that you could become Tameh to a sister which is a Begeres. Okay, that's the opinions of this Braisa. Now the Gemara is going to explain all of the opinions over here in the Braisa. So basically we had two arguments here in this Braisa. We have an argument regarding a sister of a Kohen which is an Arusa, and then there was also an argument regarding a Mukhes Eitz. A Mukhes Eitz, only Rab Shimon said you can't become Tamiter, but Rab Yossi seems like disagreed with that. So the Gemara is going to explain now the pasuk and how you dash in the pasuk according to both opinions. So over here you have in this Gemara the pasuk on the side. So if you see the pasuk says Ula Chaisai Habesula Hakroiva Elav Asher Lehaisa Leish La Yitama. Do you see how many descriptions the pasuk is saying here? All these details the pasuk is saying is coming to qualify exactly which sister he's allowed to become Tami to, as the Gemara will darshan right now, and there's different ways that are darshan this pasuk. Says the Gemara as follows: My time at Rab Meir Rab Yehuda. So what's the reason for Rab Meir Rab Yehuda? The darshi hachi. So they darshan as follows. When the pasuk says Ula Chaisei Abesula, that he can become Tami to his sister, which is a Besula, so Pratla Nusa Mafuta. That excludes his sister if she already had a relation with someone else outside of marriage. So then it can't be metamater if she passes away. Now Yachol Shani Meitzaf Mukhes Eitz, I would think that includes also if she lost her status of being a Besula through Mukhes Eitz, that he also can't be metamater her. Talmud Laimar, but no, the pasuk says Asher Lehaisa Leish, that she didn't get married to somebody, which means Misha Haviyasa Ayidei Ish. She actually got married to someone. She lost her Besulim through being married to somebody. Yatzazu She'en Haviyasa Ayidei Ish. If it was a Mukhes Eitz, so she didn't lose her status of being a Besula through being married to someone. It was just an accident. So therefore, you could still become Tami to her. Then the pasuk says Hakroiva, that his sister that's close to him, he can become Tami to her. So let Abba is Ha'arusa. That comes to say that he could become Tameh even to an Arusa. So this is Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda's opinion that even an Arusa he can become Tameh to. In other words, after the pasuk said Loi Haisa Leish, you would think that means even Edison is already considered to be the first stage of marriage, so he can't become Tameh to her. So therefore, Hakroiva says no, she's still close to him. A woman after Edison is still living in her father's house together with her brothers. Then the pasuk says Elov. What is the word Elov? Another extra word in the pasuk, Lerabes HaBegeres. That comes to say that even after she becomes a Begeres, he can still be Tameh to her. So on that the Gemara asks, on this very last drasha here, to be Marba Begeres, Halam Alikra, why do I need the pasuk to be Marba Begeres? But V'ham Rab Meir, since this is Rab Meir's opinion we're discussing here, Rab Meir said before, Besula, when the Torah writes the word Besula, what does this mean? Afila miktsas Besula. The term Besula means even a partial Besula. Every Begeres is a partial Besula. What's Begeres? Begeres is after 12 and a half, so because of maturity, the Besulim is not fully intact. But according to Rab Meir, that includes a Begeres. So why do I need a special pasuk to be Marba Begeres? I feel a mixes Besula mashma. So the Gemara answers, no, it's terich, I do need a special drasha here. I would think to say, Neilev Besula Mehasam. Maybe I should learn out the term Besula that it says here from the term Besula that it says by a Kohen Gadol. Over there, Rav Meir Darshan, because it doesn't say Besula, it says Biv Suleha with an extra Yud. So over there, he Darshan that he has to be a full Besula. So that's why I need a special pasuk to say over here. I would think to say Mala Alon Naira. Just like there she has to be a Naira, only up to 12 and a half. Afkan Nami Naira. Over here also up to 12 and a half. So therefore Kamash Malan, so he learns from Elov that even to a Begeres, a Kohen could be Metama. This is the explanation of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda's opinion that a Kohen could be Metama to his sister, which is an Arusa. Now the Gemara brings the other opinion that says that you can't, and the drasha is different. Rav Yossi, Rab Shimon, Tamayu, what's their reasoning? How do they darshan this pasuk here? So darshi yachi, they darshan as follows. When the Torah writes Ulav Chaisei Abesula, that a Kohen can become Tami to his sister Abesula, what does this exclude? Prat, it excludes La Nusa, Umefute, Mukhes Eitz. So it excludes any way she lost her Besulim, whether through someone that had a relation with her, and even through an accident. When it says Besula, so it does exclude a Mukhes Eitz. That's different than Rab Meir before. Then when it says Asher Loy Haisa, that she did not have any relation, she did not get married to anybody. What is that coming to exclude? Prat la arusa. So that actually comes to exclude even if she just had the first stage of marriage to someone, even before that person had relations with her. That's Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Then when it says hakroiva, l'rabbis arusashin is garsha. If his sister got married to someone the first stage of marriage and then he divorced her, so then he could be metamet her. And then when it says Elov, l'rabbis is a begeres. Elov, again, like we said before, Elov means that a sister of begeres can become tummy to her. So now the Gemara asks on the drasha we just said, hakroiva, l'rabbis arusashin is garsha. That hakroiva is saying that a kohen is allowed to become tummy to his sister that was married only Edison and then she was divorced. So the Gemara asks, what do I need a pasuk for this? But for Ha'amar Rab Shimon in the Braisa says, the Gemara's question is not what do I need a pasuk for this. The Gemara's question is, how could a kohen become tamei to this kind of a sister? Didn't Rab Shimon say in the Braisa, Ru'uya l'kohen gadol metamala? Any sister that could marry a kohen gadol, he could become tamei to her. She'ein ru'uya l'kohen gadol, if she cannot be married to a kohen gadol, ein metamala. He can't be married to her. This sister that's a gerusha now, if she was divorced, she can't get married to a kohen, or even for sure not a kohen gadol. So how could he say that he could be married to her? So the Gemara answers, you're right, usually that's the rule, but Shani Hassam, here it's different, the Rabbi Rachmana. It says kroiva, because it says the word kroiva. That word kroiva says that after she got divorced, she's close again to you, and therefore you could be metamet her. Why shouldn't I say that from the word kroiva, this is marbe and mukis eitz as well, that just by an accident, she's not a psula anymore, but she's still close to you. She's not married to anybody else, so why couldn't you become tummy to her? Says the Gemara, no. Kroiva achas v'lo shtayim. Kroiva is only marbe one, it's not marbe two cases. Why you marbe this sister that got married the first stage of marriage, Edison, and then got divorced? Why may I marbe that case? And why may I not marbe the case of mukis eitz? Says the Gemara, there's a difference. Ha is avid b'maisa. By mukis eitz, there's something physically that already changed in her body. But ha lo is avid b'maisa. By a sister that was an Edison, and then she got divorced, there's no change in her body. There was nothing done in her body. So therefore here, there's more of a svara to say that she remains a basula, and you can become tummy to her. Now the Gemara comes back to this case of mukis eitz. So if you learn the Braisa, you see that there's an argument regarding this woman that's a mukis eitz, if a kohen could become tummy to his sister, a mukis eitz. As the Gemara here says now, for Rabbi Yossi, when you look in the Braisa, so according to Rabbi Yossi, midushavke, Barzuge, so because when it comes to the halacha of mukis eitz, Rabbi Yossi's name is not mentioned together with his peer, which was Rab Shimon. Only Rab Shimon said by a mukis eitz he can't become Tomei, but Rabbi Yossi's name is not mentioned there. Miklad of a mukis eitz k'Rab Meir Sfirele. When it comes to a mukis eitz, he holds like Rab Meir that he could become Tomei to her. So Minale, from where does he learn this? He cannot, again, he learns out, just make sure that I have this right over here. So Rabbi Yossi does not hold like Rab Shimon. All right, so again, what did Rab Shimon hold? That by a mukis eitz, ein metamala. Right, Rab Shimon says that a mukis eitz you cannot become tamei, and it does not mention Rabbi Yossi's name. So Rabbi Yossi holds that you could become tamei. So what's the source of this? That Rabbi Yossi says that you could become tamei. So the Gemara says, you see it from the pasuk. What does the pasuk say? Svirele, again, minale, from where do you know this? Miloi haisal ish. She was not married to a man. That's when he can't become tamei to her. But a mukis eitz, it didn't happen through her being married to a man. It's just an accident that happened. Fragte Gemara, but va'apikte. We already learned that out before from loy haisal ish. The Gemara already said that according to him, you darshan from there that prat la arusa. That an arusa, she was already married to someone. So how could you learn out from here regarding a mukis eitz? Says the Gemara, there's two parts to the pasuk here. Chad mi loy haisa. One drasha I learn out from loy haisa. From loy haisa I learn out to exclude an arusa. That there was haisa. That did already have a kiddushin with somebody. And then over here, and v'chad mi ish. When it says ish, that means only if a man, a relation with a man took away her besulim. But not through mukis eitz, not through an accident. The Gemara discusses one more detail in the Braisa before, or what the Gemara explained before, according to Rab Shimon. It said before, according to Rab Shimon, that Elov l'rabis ha-begeres. That Elov comes to say that even a begeres he could become tummy to her. So the Gemara asks in this, but v'ha'amar Rab Shimon, previously on the previous daf, over there in the Sugya, the Gemara said in the name of Rab Shimon, that Besula means Besula Shlema. Besula means that she has to be a full Besula. How can we say that we're being marbe a begeres? A begeres is not a full Besula. So the Gemara says, Again, besula shleima mashma. So the Gemara answer is no, but that fits with what we're saying now. Why not? Taime didei nami hasam. How does Rab Shimon know that a besula means a full besula? Mehacha. The darish hachi mid the elav l'rabes abegeres. Because over here you need a special pasuk of elav to be marba begeres. Miklal, from this I understand the besula shleima mashma. That if I would not have the special pasuk, I would say besula means a full besula. Okay, so that's the conclusion of this subject b'negeh to a kayin being metame to his sister. The Gemara now starts a new inyan and brings from Rab Shimon ben Yochi. It speaks about, again, the marriage of a kayin. A kayin getting married to a giyaris. Zok the Gemara, Satanya, we learned in a braise. Rab Shimon ben Yochi aimer giyaris pchusa mibash shalosh shanim. A giyaris that's less than 3 years old, mibash shalosh shanim v'yem echad, so ksheira l'kohona. She can get married to a kayin. Okay, so this is only the opinion of Rab Shimon. The Gemara in Kiddushin says that, according to the Chachamim, most opinions hold that a kohen cannot get married to a giyaris that's less than 3 years old. Rab Shimon, however, holds, and the Gemara there brings psukim. The Gemara brings psukim actually from Nach, where you see that a kohen is not allowed to marry a giyaris. But Rab Shimon ben Yochi says, a kohen is allowed to marry a giyaris. Elamai, which giyaris? Only a giyaris that's less than 3 years old. And the reason is because a giyaris that's less than 3 years old can't have a relation with anybody, so therefore there's no concern that she did have a relation with anybody, so therefore a kohen could marry her. And what's the source for this? Shenema, the pasuk says, and this is by the Mulchama of Midyan, when the Yidden went out to fight after the whole story with the Beis Pa'or, Baal Pa'or that is, and over there they went to fight with Midyan, and it says, V'chol ataf benoshim, that all the young women Ashelo yadu mishkav zachar, that did not have a relation with anybody, hachiu lachem, you could leave them to be alive, and you can actually be megayer them, and they can get married to Yidden. Right, so we're talking over here about taf banoshim. Taf banoshim is under 3 years old, and they can get married to Yidden if they're going to be megayer. So the Gemara adds, V'harei Pinchas imam. Who went to fight that war with the Yidden? Pinchas is the one that led the war with the Yidden, and Pinchas is a kayin. So from this I see that even Pinchas, being a kayin, could marry one of these young girls that are being megayer that's under 3 years old. Now, the Rabbanan, that like I mentioned before in the Gemara in Kiddushin, the Rabbanan disagree with Rab Shimon, and they say that a kayin is not allowed to marry a giyaris. So how do they learn pshat on that pasuk? Why are you leaving these young women alive? Lavadim ul'shvachis. They're only being kept alive to take them as maidservants. And these maidservants should give birth to avadim as well, but it's not to marry them. A kayin, according to the Rabbanan, a kayin cannot marry a giyaris even if she became a giyaris under 3 years old. Frek the Gemara ihachi. Now, if it's based on this pasuk that we just quoted here, what does the pasuk say? A woman that did not have a relation with another man. If so, bas shalosh shana v'yemechad nami. Why is Rab Shimon saying that this is only a giyaris that's under 3 years old? What do you see in that pasuk? In that pasuk it says, Chalatav banoshim ashalayadu mishkav zachar. The main point is that this is a giyaris that you know that didn't have a relation with any man. So this should be by any giyaris. Anytime there's a giyaris that you know that she didn't have a relation with anybody before she came a giyaris, a kain should be allowed to marry her. So the Gemara says, no, it has to be dafka under 3 years old when she can't have a relation with anybody else. That is impossible. And the reason is, Rav Huna. Like Rav Huna explained this. Rav Huna asked regarding that story there, when it says by Midyan that they have to kill the women that had a relation with someone else, but not those that did not. So Rav Huna asked the following contradiction. In one pasuk it says, Kol isha yadas ish lemishkav zachar haraygu, that a woman, an adult, an older woman that had a relation with someone else, that's the woman that has to be killed. So what do we understand from that pasuk? Ha eina yedas, if she did not have a relation with anybody else, kaimu. So then you can keep her alive. That's regarding an adult woman. But miklal, from this I understand, da taf, that when it comes to a woman that's under 3 years old, ben yadu, ben lo yadu, kaimu. You don't have to look if this girl had a relation with someone else or not, because the whole biyah is not a biyah b'chlal, and you could leave him alive. That's what you understand from this pasuk. So again, from this pasuk you see that any of these girls that are under 3 years old, you can keep alive regardless. But then in another pasuk it says, the pasuk we quoted before, the chalataf benoshim, that when it comes to these young girls under 3 years old, Asher lo yadu mishkav zachar hachi lachem. Only if you know that they didn't have a relation with someone else, then you can keep them alive. Ha yadu, but if you know that they did have a relation with someone else, haraigu, you do have to kill them. So what's the contradiction over here regarding a girl that's under 3 years old, and you know that she had a relation with someone else? In the first pasuk it says you can keep her alive, and in the second pasuk it says you have to kill her. So how do you understand this? So what did Rav Huna explain? So you have to say as follows: when the pasuk uses the term yedas ish or lo yadu mishkav zacha, what it means is beru'uya liba lakasav medaber. The Torah is explaining the age where she's fit b'chlal to have a relation with another person, where the bia will be considered a bia. What the pasuk is saying is an adult woman, which the bia is a bia, and she's fit to have a relation with someone else, so therefore you have to kill them. But when it comes to a taf, a girl that's under 3 years old, the whole bia is not a bia b'chlal, so therefore you keep her alive. That's what these two psukim are saying. So from here I see that you have to go according to the age of 3 years old. You have to look at whether it's b'chlal possible for the bia to be a bia. And that's the only thing that matters, and therefore that's what Rav Shimon said. Under 3 years old, a geyoris is mutter for a kain. Tam Yanami Hachi, we learned the same thing in a Braise, V'chol Isha Yidas Ish, when it says that a woman that was Yidas Ish, what does this mean? That means you don't have to know for sure that she had a relation with a man, but it means that if she's an adult woman and she could have a relation with a man, she has to be killed over there in that Mulchama of Midyan. You say that it means what she's fit to have a relation with someone. Maybe it means a woman that you know for a fact that she actually had a relation with someone else. When the pasuk says it says by the girls that are under 3 years old that lo yada mishkav zachar. What does that mean? That has to mean only beru'uya. The pasuk is saying under 3 years old it's not possible for her to have a relation with someone else, and therefore you don't have to kill her. Like we said before, because otherwise there would be a contradiction between the two psukim. Now the Gemara asks a question regarding that story over there. Once we brought up that story, the Gemara now wants to know, how did they know when they had to kill these young, they had to know exactly who's under 3 years old that can't have a relation with someone else? How did they know? Mina yadi, from where did they know? Amar Avuna bar Bizna, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida. So he said, they knew as follows, Havirim lefnei atzitz. They brought these young girls in front of a tzitz, and kol shepineh merikos, if their face became green, biyadua shiruya libal, they knew that she's already the age that she could have relations with someone, and they had to kill her. Kol she'en pineh merikos, if her face did not change colors, did not become green, biyadua she'en ruya libal, they knew that she cannot have relations with anybody, and they kept her alive. The Gemara says another thing. Amar Rav Nachman simin la'aveire hadreikin. The siman for a person that did an aveda, that had relations, that he's not allowed, is that what happens is, hadreikin, he passes away with this kind of sickness where the person's face, the color changes. There's a similar thing that was said in another story that happened later in history, that what happened, Vayimtzu miyoshve Yavesh Gilad Arba Meyes Nara Besula. There were in the city of Yavesh Gilad, there was 400 Nara Besula that were found over there. This is from Shevet Binyamin, and it says there in the pasuk, Ashela Yadu Ish LeMishkav Zachar, that they did not have relations with any man. Mina Yadi, how did they know this? Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana said they used the following method. Haishivim al pi chavis. They had these women sit on the opening of a barrel of wine, shal yain of wine. Bu'ula, if she had a relation with another man, so then reicha neidif, there was a smell of the wine that came out of her mouth. But besula, and so because she was a besula, and therefore the wine, the smell did not come through her body, ein reicha neidif, the smell did not come through her mouth. That's the method they used. So the Gemara asks on that, v'navrinu l'fnei tzitz. Why over there they did not use the tzitz to figure out which woman did not have a relation with another man? So he said no, they didn't want to use the tzitz, because regarding the tzitz it says l'rotzen lahem ksiv, that the tzitz is only used to appease the Eibishter. It's used for the positive. L'rotzen v'lo l'puranis. It's used l'rotzen, and it's not used to bring punishment. And over there in that story, this is the whole story of B'Shevet Binyamin, Pelegish Begiva, so it's not used in the negative. By Midyan as well, they are using the tzitz to figure out which woman they are going to kill. Rav Ashi says, Lahem ksiv. This means regarding Yidden, which means Lahem, ksiv lahem l'ratzain. Only for Yidden the tzitz has to be l'ratzain v'loy l'puranis, and not as a punishment, but oloiv d'kechavim, afil l'puranis. When it comes to the Goyish women there that they had to figure out who to kill, the tzitz could be used for their punishment. Now, going back to the halacha of Rab Shimon, by yeah, it's Yiddish women. It was women from Shevet Binyamin. So now the Gemara goes back to the halacha of Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon says that a kohen could marry a giyaitis. So Amar Rav Yaakov bar Idi, Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, halacha Rab Shimon ben Yochai. We pass like Rab Shimon ben Yochai that a kohen could marry a giyaitis. Amar Rav Zela Rav Yaakov bar Idi. So he asked him, befeidish mi'alach. Did you hear this befeidish from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that the halacha is like Rab Shimon ben Yochai? Or meklalish mi'alach. Or maybe you learned it from a story, from a psak din that happened. So, and the Gemara says, my klala. What was the story that happened? There was a city in Eretz Yisrael, Shekara Alel Irir. There was a certain rumor, there was something that people said about a certain family in that city. V'shigir Rabbi is Rab Ruminus. Rabbi sent Rab Ruminus to go find out what went on over there. Ubatka, and he interrogated, he looked at the situation. Umatza ba, what he found was Baz Giyairis, Pchusa mi Baz Shalish Shanim v'Yomecha, that there was a Giyairis under 3 years old, Ve'chshira, and that's what the whole rumor was about. That this Giyairis under 3 years old married a Kayin, and people were saying that this is not kosher. And what happened over there in that story? Ve'chshira Rabbi lekahuna. And Rabbi said that she's kosher, that she can remain married to this kohen. That was the story. So they wanted to know, maybe that was the story that he learned it out from, that the halacha is like Rab Shimon ben Yochai. So he said to him, no, I didn't learn it from that story. Amalei befeidish mili. I actually heard this befeidish from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, not only based on this incident that happened. Now the Gemara inquires here, V'i miklala, if he only learned it from this story, my. Why could I not learn out from the story? Rabbi befeidish paskin that the kohen could remain married to the giyaitis. So the Gemara says no, because there would be a question on this. Dilme, I would say shani hasa. Maybe that case is different. That's b'diavad. Once the kohen already married the giyaitis, that's different. Why? Hoyel ve'insiv. Once he married her, maybe there we allow her to remain married to her. Why? So it goes back to what we learned at the beginning of this whole blot. The Rav and Rabbi Yechanan both said begeres and mukeseitz. So begeres and mukeseitz, they're both not a besula. La yisa, Kain is not allowed to marry her. But vim nasa nasi. After the fact, if he married her, he could remain married to her. So maybe we could say the same thing over here. Once a Kain married her giyaitis, he can remain married to her. But the Gemara says, now how could you compare this? Hachiyasha, what kind of comparison is this? Bishlai mahasam, over there, the reason why a Kain can remain married to her is because Saifa Leah is begeres tachtov, or Leah is be'ula tachtov, or Saifa Leah is be'ula tachtov. Over there, like the Svar the Gemara said, every Kain that marries a basula eventually loses her basulim, and therefore b'diavad, if he didn't marry a basula, he could remain married to her. But hacha, Saifa Leah is zaina tachtov. Over here, by a giyaitis, the issue with a giyaitis that's above 3 years old is that she's a zaina. And maybe that applies even to a giyaitis that's less than 3 years old. That we say the same halacha that because she's a zaina, you're not allowed to marry a giyaitis. So over here you can't say that b'diavad there would be a reason to allow the kohen to remain married to her. Now the Gemara concludes and says, Rav Safra masni lo meklala. Rav Safra learned out that this halacha is like Rab Shimon ben Yochai from this story that happened. The kashile. They asked him the question that maybe you can't learn from there because it was only b'diavad. And he gave this answer that we just said, that there's no reason to make a distinction regarding b'diavad. Okay, so till here it comes out that the halacha is like Rab Shimon ben Yochai. But now the Gemara concludes, this is the last point there, the Gemara brings another story where we see that the halacha is not like Rab Shimon ben Yochai. Kahana, there was a Kayin, the Insiv Giyaitis Pchusim Miba Shalashanim. He married a Giyaitis that was less than 3 years old, Yemechad, less than 3 years old in a day. Amalei Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said to him, my high, why are you marrying a Giyaitis? A Kayin shouldn't marry a Giyaitis. Amalei, so he told him, the Amar Rav Yaakov Baidi, Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Halacha Rab Shimon ben Yochai. So we pass like Rab Shimon ben Yochai, so I'm allowed to marry this Giyaitis. Amalei, so Rav Nachman by Yitzchak told him, Zil Apik, go. And be megadisher, send her out, and viloi, and if not, mafkinulach Rab Yaakov bar Idi miyonach. If not, I will take what you heard from Rab Yaakov bar Idi from your ears. She says it was an expression that he was telling him, if you're not going to listen to what I'm telling you, I'm going to put you into some kind of a chayrim. So we see here a very sharp expression that, and this is the final halacha, that Rav Nachman Yitzchak is saying that a kohen is not allowed to marry a giyaitis, and not even a giyaitis that's under 3 years old.